Welcome back. The topic for this video are units of radioactivity, where we're going to express radioactivity in a variety of units. So the two most common units that we'll run into in this course are the becquerel, which is abbreviated as BQ, and the curie, which is abbreviated as CI. You have various other units like the gray and the radiation absorbed dose. And you can look at the different ways that we can convert between these units. However, most of your exercises are going to deal with radiation dosage. So rather than simply being in curies, they are going to be represented in your curies per milliliter, or specifically millicuries per milliliter. And remember that 1 millicurie is simply equal to 10 to the negative third curies because of that milli prefix. Okay, so when we look at these problems, the millicurie per milliliter is very similar to density, where density units are grams per milliliter. So we are simply replacing those grams with millicuries. And therefore we can use our dosage in millicuries per milliliter as our conversion factor. So the problems are going to look something like this. You have a patient that's been given 5 millicurie dose that is available in a solution containing 3.8 millicuries per milliliter. What volume of the solution should be administered? So when we are setting up unit conversions, we typically want to identify what's the given information, what's the conversion factor, and what is the target. And remember that a conversion factor is either going to be something that you know, like how many milliliters are in a liter, or it's going to have to be something that's given to you in the problem. And if it's given to you in the problem, remember that conversion factors have that slash in them. So if you see two sets of units, both for a given number, like 3.8 millicuries per milliliter, that is your conversion factor. All right, this whole entity. And then the only other information that they give us is the 5 millicuries. And notice how there's only a single unit there. There's not a slash or a per statement. And therefore that 5 millicuries is what we call our given information. Okay, so we have our given information, our conversion factor, and then the target is what they're asking for. So they're asking what is the volume in milliliters. Okay, so we write up these road maps or solution maps where we start with our given information, end with the target, and then underneath our arrow, we tend to write what the conversion factor is. And sometimes you'll see it written as it is 3.8 millicuries per milliliter, and sometimes you may see it as an equality. But same thing. All right, we start with our given information, which is the 5 millicuries. We are going to multiply by our conversion factor. And we need to decide what goes on top and what goes on bottom for our conversion factor. So if I break up that 3.8 millicuries per milliliter and write it vertical, it would be 3.8 millicuries per 1 milliliter. And I can either keep that or I can flip it. And when I flip it, I've got to keep everything together as a package deal. So everything on top has to be moved down to the bottom, and everything on the bottom has to be moved to the top. So the 1 milliliter comes to the top and 3.8 millicuries to the bottom. And I've got to decide which of these two conversion factors that I need. And I always want to put the target units on the top and the given units on the bottom for a single step conversion factor. So my given units are millicuries, which means that I know I need the millicuries on the bottom. And the target is the volume in milliliters. So I know that that has to go on top. The number that is packaged with the milliliters was a 1, and the number packaged with the millicuries is 3.8. So what that basically means is that I have to take the 3.8 millicuries per milliliter and I have to flip it. All right, my millicuries cancel out on both sides, and I simply need to take 5 divided by 3.8. Both numbers have 2 significant figures, so I want to report 2 sig figs in my answer, and I get 1.3 milliliters. All right, so hopefully pretty simple. Again, you take the millicurie units, that number is your given information, and then decide whether you need to keep or flip the millicuries per milliliter. And in this case, we need to flip that conversion factor to get your volume. So I hope this helps.